Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing an Armored Samurai Ben K deck profile. So I'm really excited for this one because it's actually a Patreon request by Izzy. So Izzy actually comes up with some insane decks for the channel, and I'm really excited to bring this one to you guys because it's a very old school deck that actually can OTK your opponent with the greatest of ease, and is an amazing deck to actually play because it's very, very, very budget to actually build this deck because the majority of the deck is actually commons. You can actually build the entire main deck for around $30 to $40, which is really interesting, except for a couple of tech cards you can actually interchange out for some more budget options that I will mention as we go through. And the extra deck is also extremely cheap and subject to change as you want because it is a Pot of Extravagance build. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below where we have all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description for a single video, getting assigned cards in mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month that you're a patron along with test hands. And definitely give Izzy some love down in the comments down below. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Armored Samurai. So this card is only a 2 of in the deck. You don't super want to draw into it. You can actually run through the plays with Azul twice in this deck, usually. And by then you've either OTK'd your opponent or you've lost, because it is a very glass cannon kind of deck where you're going to either OTK or your opponent's going to destroy your Ben K and you're going to lose. But you're usually going to OTK your opponent by going second, because there's not a lot that your opponent's going to be able to do against you if you draw into this card or they don't stop the Azul play. But basically what this card does is it gains an additional attack for each equipped spell that is equipped to it, which is a very interesting effect. It doesn't look very menacing at 500 and 800, but if this card was any bigger than it is, then it would be insane with the equipped spells. If this card had like 1500 attack and 1800 defense, this card would probably be potentially banned. But we then play 3 copies of Neospatian Connector. Neospatian Connector is really good because when this card is normal summon, you can special summon a Neospatian monster and elemental hero Neos from your hand or deck in defense position. And the card that we're always going to be summoning off of this is a copy of Neospatian Aqua Dolphin. The Aqua Dolphin is going to help you out a lot in this deck because basically it's going to give you an additional monster to go into Azul. Kind of the same thing with your copy of Sub Knight and your copy of Squeak Knight. Kind of do the same thing where this card, where your Neospatian Connector special summons out your Aqua Dolphin, whereas your Sub Knight equips the copy of Squeak Knight, which then special summons itself out to your side of the field, which is the big play between these 2 monsters, because basically what you're looking for is to use an Azul to then mill 4 equipped spells from the deck to the graveyard and then be able to special summon out your copy of your Armored Samurai, which is very, very nice in this particular deck. We then play a single copy of Super Quantum Red Layer. Red Layer just is an additional monster that we can actually search out of the deck with our copy of Durandal, which is a fantastic card to be able to search with. And basically it's going to give you an additional special summon because you can special summon this card first if you go ahead and have it in your hand. If you draw into it, you can then special summon it out to your field. And then if your opponent Ash Blossoms either the Neospatian Connector or the Sub Knight, it's just going to give you additional plays. Now I will mention you guys, you can change this out if you want to and play a single copy of the Immortal Phoenix Gearfried. It is an option if you want to go that route, but this is pretty good as it is to be able to just play these monsters, because you're basically what you're looking for on your first turn is either drawing into one of these or drawing into either the Sub Knight or the copy of Neospatian Connector to be able to get you an additional normal summon to be able to get those plays, or a combination of both. So it's really an awesome way to actually play the deck because it's very simplistic in what you're trying to do. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. Now, the spells is where it starts getting insane. So for the spells, you're basically just looking at these cards and going, okay, that's where the buffs start coming in. So for the first card, we're going to be playing a single copy of the Infernable Durandal. Durandal is really good because it has the ability that when this card is equipped to a monster, you can add 1 level 5 or lower Fire Warrior monster from your deck to your hand, which can be a copy of Sub Knight, it can be a copy of your Red Layer. It's totally up to you which one you grab, but it has the ability that also, if this card is sent to the graveyard because it was equipped to a monster, then you can target 1 level 5 or lower Fire Warrior monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest turn except for Warrior, which that's totally fine because usually that's all we're going to be special summoning anyways. 1 copy of Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. This card can recur itself like crazy, which is really nice because you can mill it to the graveyard off your copy of of Isolde, and be able to add it back off of the copy of banishing a Sub Knight and a Squeak Knight or a Neospatian Connector and an Aqua Dolphin that you use as material to go into the Isolde, and then special summon out your Ben-K, which will give it an additional 300 and an extra attack. We then play a single copy of Psychic Blade. Psychic Blade is fantastic in this deck because you get to pay 2,000 life points, or in increments of 100 all the way up to 2,000, and the equipped monster gains attack equal to the amount you paid. That is great in this deck because you can boost Ben-K all the way up to 2,500 on just this one card, giving it 2 attacks, but you're usually going to equip like 5 equip spells to it, but this is a really good boost. We then play a single copy of Clarent, which I think is arguably the best equipped spell in this entire deck, because what it does is the equipped monster can attack directly at the cost of 500 life points, which is a fantastic effect just to be able to give you an additional attack on your opponent's life points, and this card can single-handedly help you OTK. You always want to equip this card onto your copy of your Ben-K because you're going to be able to smack your opponent in the face for multiple attacks. One copy of Gallatin. Gallatin gives an additional 1,000 attack points. It's pretty much all it does, and it does count as a Noble Arms card, which it can be searched with our copy of Heritage of the Chalice, which is why it's so good. 2 copies of United We Stand, because on summon, if you have the Isolde and the copy of Ben-Kai or Ben-K on your side of the field, you're going to gain 1,600 attack on your monster, which is really, really good. 3 copies of Mage Power. You are putting a lot of spell cards on the field, so you're going to be able to gain upwards of 2,500 per copy of Mage Power. Like with just 2 copies of this and a full back row, you're going to gain 5,000 attack points. And if you have Clarent equipped on top of it, you're going to be able to smack your opponent for an additional 5,000 for each hit directly to their life points, which is fantastic. 3 copies of Power of the Guardians. Power of the Guardians is probably arguably the best one besides Clarent, because this card, if an attack is declared involving your monster, you get to place a counter on that monster or counter on this card, and this monster gains 500 attack and defense for each counter on this card. If you get 3 of these with a Clarent on your monster, you're just going to have this card up so big it's going to be ridiculous, because every time it attacks it gains 500, and it's not once per turn that you're going to get counters. So if Ben-Kai attacks 5-6 times, this card is going to get 5 to 6 counters, which is going to boost it by upwards of 3,000 each turn, which is really, really good. And if your monster is going to be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can remove a counter from this card instead. So it does give the deck a little bit of protection, which is why this card is so good in this deck. We then play a Cursed Bamboo Sword engine because Izzy loves Cursed Bamboo Sword, and we're going to be playing this in the deck because this card is basically really good because it is an equip spell that you can send to the graveyard off the copy of Isolde. It's kind of like my Dark Armed Dragon deck, where I use the copy of Cursed Bamboo Sword to draw out the 3 copies of Dark Armed Dragon out of the deck. But basically what this card does is every time it's sent to the graveyard, you get to add a copy of a Bamboo Sword card from your deck to your hand, which can be your copy of Broken Bamboo Sword, which doesn't give Ben-Kai any attack points, it's just going to give it 0. Or you can grab a copy of Golden Bamboo Sword, which is a fantastic draw engine in this deck. They'll let you draw 2 cards if you control a Bamboo Sword equip spell, which is really, really good. But even if you equip this card as a 0 boost, it's still going to give your opponent, or still going to give your Ben-Kai an additional attack, which is what's really important about Bamboo Sword. We then play a single copy of Rhoda, because Rhoda is basically like playing an additional copy of every single warrior in your deck. 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods, which can send your Cursed Bamboo Sword to the graveyard to add Broken or Golden from your deck to your hand, which is really nice. 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. It does conflict a little bit with the deck because it's going to conflict a little bit with your Golden Bamboo Sword, but it is an option for you guys to interchange this out. You can play a single copy of Upstart Goblin, a single copy of Into the Void, and maybe 1 Desires if you want to go that route. The reason I didn't play Desires in my build is because I did play a lot of 1-ofs in the equip spell area, and the Ben-Kais are 1-ofs as well, and you play the copies of Squeak Knight and your copy of your Neospatian Aqua Dolphin, but that's why I didn't play them anymore or I played this over anything else. If you want to go a little bit more expensive on the route, you can play 3 copies of Pot of Prosperities, which is another option for you guys, and you can play, like I said, an Upstart, Into the Void, and a single copy of another like Desires card or something like that, just to get you an additional draw power. We then play for the final 3 spells. We're going to be playing 3 copies of Heritage of the Chalice. This card is very, very helpful for this deck because Heritage is basically going to let you add 1 of your Noble Arms spells from your deck to your hand, which is really, really good. You either add a Noble Knight monster or 1 Noble Arms card from your deck or graveyard to your hand, and if your Noble Knight monster equipped with a Noble Arms equip spell is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, while this card's in the graveyard, you get to add this card back to your hand, which if you do equip a copy of something to an Isolde is a Noble Knight monster, so you will get that card back, which is really, really nice. So That's it for the deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck and see what we're actually playing in the extra deck. Like I said, the extra deck can kind of be interchanged, so if there's anything that's too expensive for you guys, but you want to play this, you can outside of the Isolde. So first off, we're going to be playing the 3 copies of Isolde. Everything after this is basically utility, so the 3 copies of Isolde are the most important things. If this card is link summon, you get to add a warrior monster from your deck to your hand, and you can also send equip spells to the graveyard equal to the level of a warrior monster in your deck, and you get to special summon that warrior to your field. So you're usually going to send 4 copies of an equip spell to the graveyard to be able to instantly special summon out your copy of Benkai to your side of the field as quickly as possible, which is really helpful for this deck, because then you can equip it with all those equip spells and make it really big and beefy to be able to OTK your opponent, especially with stuff like Clarent and your other copies of your equip spells. It's just going to make this deck absolutely insane. We then play a single copy of Boral Sword. You rarely go into it, but it's there just in case you need it, because sometimes you will climb into this card if something does happen to your first Benkai. 1 copy of Access Code, because it gives you additional pops. You don't have to play this if you don't want to. You can play a copy of Borreload if you want to play Borreload, or additional Appaloosas, which we play a single copy of Appaloosa. Appaloosa does come up every so often where you'll have an Isolde on your field, and then the following turn you'll normal summon a copy of like Neospatian Connector, special summon Aqua Dolphin, and then your opponent will pop all of your back row, and you'll be left with an Isolde and a copy of Benkai with very little attack. And then you'll go ahead and link into an IP, and then be able to go into either your copy of Access Code or Appaloosa, which is a little bit of an option there. We then play a single copy of Draco Masters the Txne. Draco Masters is just really good because you can use it with an extra link monster, and your opponent can't destroy it by battle with the card effects, or your opponent cannot destroy it by battle with an effect monster. And if you control no effect monster, you can destroy effect monsters your opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters you control, which is usually limited to 0 in this deck. But not being able to destroy by an effect monster is really cool. By battle is just a really good effect, so I decided to play it as 1 because you don't really need the extra deck. Like, it's not needed besides the Isolde. We then play 2 copies of Unicorn just because it spins stuff, and it helps out the deck just to give you an additional option for spinning. I will say the Unicorns are pretty necessary, but they're very cheap now because they got reprinted as rares. 2 copies of Phoenix because it can pop spells and traps, which is really nice. A single copy of Cerberus because it can pop monsters. 2 copies of Masquerena. The Masquerenas are kind of needed, but you don't have to play them because they're comboed with the Isolde to go into the copy of Appaloosa or the Access Code, just in case you need to, but it's not like the end of the world if you don't have these. And then we play a single copy of Linkuriboh because sometimes you will have the Squeak Knight in hand, and you'll normal summon it out to your side of the field, and then link it away for the copy of the Linkuriboh, just in case you get put in a bad spot, which will happen from time to time. So that's it for the deck, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and definitely give Izzy some love down in the comments down below, because like I said, this deck is pretty insane, and I really love the way that the deck actually plays. It's very old school, because this deck, like, I think it was like Benkai was really good back in, like, when it was released back in, like, I think it was like 2014 was when it was released. 2015 was when it was actually released in Flaming Eternity, a long time ago at the end of the Duel Monster era. But it's just an overall really good card that can still like do stuff in the meta, or not in the meta, but like in the rogue community, which is really interesting to be able to just OTK your opponent and really surprise them. So anyways, guys, this is Dark Armed Duels. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.